Welcome to Quit to Win, the show where we explore the moments people had to let go of destructive patterns, limiting identity, and the internal battle to rebuild their life with purpose and clarity. Our today's guest is Greig Watts, a bestseller author, songwriter, publisher, and A&R, and a co-founder of the DWB, and one of the UK's most successful songwriters, and publishing of Team with 18 Eurovision entries across 11 consecutive years, and millions of units sold worldwide, particularly across Japan and South Korea. He's also the mentor of the neurodiverse songwriter and producers and the author of the Keeping the Dreams Alive. Back in 2003, Greg nearly walked away from music entirely, worn down by rejections, and the belief that he wasn't good enough at that particular moment. What made him realize staying was no longer an option. In his words, he realized he had a dream to follow, and a life to live. Greg, it's a pleasure and honor having you on the show.
Thank you very much. Really good to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much, Greg. So, Greg, you first fell in love with songwriter as a kid, hearing Azal and new song, and scribbling your own song. What did that early dreams cost you before it ever paid off?
I guess at the beginning, when you say you want to be a songwriter or an artist or be in a band, everyone kind of laughs at you and says, stop dreaming. And but that I guess I just carried. I always had that inner belief that no, I'm going to actually do this. I mean, even my teachers at school sort of said when I was asked, what do you want to do? And I wanted to be a songwriter and a business person. They often said, no, what real job do you want to do? And I kept saying the same. And actually, even I guess in the playground, I was selling records at that point and dreaming of being songwriter. So, and I was doing it. So I guess the cost is a little bit of ridicule, a little bit of people not believing in you, but a lot has come from it since. So I think that was worth a bit of ridicule in the beginning.
Yeah, amazing. The first time, people not being believing in you, and which it's more like a child play. You wake up from it later on, and you being persistent, so achieving it. It's amazing. And by 2003, you were ready to walk away from music completely. What did staying was no longer an option actually feel like in that particular season? And what shifted?
So I think that goes back. So I was at working at a bank, and I was working full time at that point. I was doing music a tiny bit. I was going up to London, taking 2 hours to get there, writing a song for 3 hours, coming back for 2 hours, and then having 2 weeks of work. So it felt like I was doing absolutely hardly anything. And there was a point where I thought, shall I just work in the bank? Shall I just put my career, a different career forward? And I did start to think that maybe I should. But actually, music's inside you. Songs are inside you, and I think that creativity had to come out. So eventually I realized I just needed to wait until the right person. At the time I had to wait for my wife to say, it's time for you to go and do music and follow your dreams. And it took a while, but eventually she said, okay, I can see you're not happy, even though you're earning money. Let's follow your dreams for a year. And if you start to make it a career, then you don't have to go back. If by the end of the year you haven't done anything, you haven't got anywhere, then maybe you have to go back to the bank. On month 12, we were like, I'm so close. It feels like I'm really close to getting there. So we said 3 more months. And on month 13, I was offered a job to set up a publishing department of a record company, because they'd seen me writing songs and selling songs, or trying to sell songs, and they thought, this guy we need to employ this guy. So that was around 2003, and I've never been back to the bank.
Amazing. I think it's really lovely having to kind of have more like a partner that supports you. That dream will not come into the fact that there's a whole lot of bills to pay and a whole lot of things to actually want. Like, it's really a whole lot. And I'm just thinking about having to write 4 hours down and write song for 3 hours only to get back to bank, which is going to be 2 weeks. It's really a whole lot, and having to kind of dedicate your time to eat till be comfortable was really amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. So you came from a family full of autism and have spoken about becoming the defenders of the underdog early in the life after watching people put your family and your network down. How did that shape what you were willing to tolerate and what you're wearing?
I guess it's when you're growing up, you don't realize the surroundings you're in. You just feel like they're natural. In a sense. So of course, if someone is being bullied, eventually, especially if it's a family member, you start to stand up for them. But now I look back and I know the reasons why that was all happening. So, and I just recognized the pattern that I love to fight for the underdog.
Yeah.
I love it when, I don't know if you're into football or sports. I love it when the smaller team, we have in England, we have something called the FA Cup, where the little teams, let's say Farnham Town, who no one's ever heard of, suddenly get to play Manchester United. And if that Farnham Town could actually win, that's so exciting. So in a way, the same with life, with family, with siblings, and now with songwriters. I found if there's someone that's really good, but they don't really get recognised, or their gifting's not noticed, I really want to sort of champion them to help push them forward. Because I saw it when I was growing up, that friends and family were called stupid and they're not good enough, including me. I was told I wasn't good enough. And actually, I've proved lots of people wrong, because I know I'm good enough underneath, and I know I've got special talents in certain places. I know in some things I don't fit, and that was the difference. It wasn't that I wasn't good enough, it just wasn't my thing. So it's a bit like I might have been the best footballer in the world, but the school was trying to make me play cricket. There's a difference. Actually, you just need to go where the places are that you can use your strengths, and then you'll thrive.
Yeah, amazing. Being an underdog, having to support those who doesn't have the capacity to actually help themselves. Yeah, it's really amazing, and a whole lot to learn there. And also, you and your team are build out the DBB into one of the UK leading independent publishing in Japan and South Korea at a time when no one in the UK cares about the J-pops and the K-pops. What did you have to quit doing to go and make a market your own instead of waiting for permission?
Probably I had to quit some of the focus on the UK being the biggest place, or the US being the biggest place. As a kid, I grew up on UK music, on America, and music on MTV, Live Aid. And my dream was to be number one around the world. My expectancy was it would be with a big American artist or a big UK artist. But actually, when we were being successful in Japan and Korea, we were still number one in the world, but it was through a Japanese artist. So I was actually fulfilling my dreams. And I quickly realized I should focus on, again, this is my strength. My strength's really working. Do I work on my strengths, or do I turn around and try and work on things where I'm not so good, or I'm failing, or also I'm not as accepted? There's a simple rule in life where in England, an Englishman is not as interesting, but a Swede in England is much more interesting. In Japan, a Japanese writer isn't as interesting as an English writer. So there's something about when you're from somewhere else, you are more interesting. So it's very hard to make it in your own country. There's something about you're the boy next door, you're the same. So there's an element of, I think sometimes you have to switch your mind off where you're from and go somewhere else. So, I had to quit a little bit focusing on the UK industry and focus in Japan. And it was worth it in the end.
Yeah, amazing. Which a whole lot to really get to learning there. It just speaks volumes to the fact that where you're from, sometimes they don't get to kind of recognize the potential you have in there. And even if they are recognized, they don't give you the credit as much as having to do other similar things elsewhere. Yeah, it's really a whole lot. And having to get to learn that pattern earlier on really gives you an advantage. And so at the same thing happened now with the Eurovision in 2016. No UK songwriter wanted in, and your team made it into the competition anyway. What is the pattern you're now recognizing yourself right before a big unconventional but pays off?
I guess similar again. It's the first time it happened, it wasn't that planned. It was a bit of an accident. But when you start to see a pattern, you start to realize you're aiming somewhere and then somewhere else is being successful. Let's put lots more into this being successful over here. So I think all the way through, this has been teaching me, go where your strengths are, go where you're accepted. I've traveled a lot around the world, and some people have sort of said to me, for instance, why haven't you come to Canada? Now, there's nothing wrong with Canada.
Yeah.
But I've never really been invited. So I go, if I'm invited somewhere, people want to hear you. So when I was invited to Taiwan, I went. When I was invited to Holland and the Netherlands, I went. Because you're by invitation, people are welcome. You're not going and forcing them to listen to you. You've been invited. So once you're invited, you've got much more authority. So I think I learned that is really go where people want you.
Yeah, amazing. Go where people want you. Go where your strength are celebrated. Yeah, amazing. And also you have gone from songwriter to publishing to mentor to best-selling author. Each of these is a different identity. What did you have to let go from the previous chapter, fully step into the next one?
Again, I think sometimes they happen naturally. You just suddenly find I'm publishing and I was writing. But I think the more I've moved over to mentor and A&R And running a company, the more I've let go of, I don't really write songs anymore. I did write one this year, but I haven't got time. But my creativity is coming from running songwriting camps, inspiring other people to actually create. And of course, during the time I was writing songs, I was often writing with an artist. And when you're writing with the artist, you need them to tell you their story so you can write with them about their story. So when I wrote my book couple of years ago to start with and finished it last year, suddenly I thought, this is the first time I've told my story for many years, because it's my book. I'm not writing for a song for someone else to sing. I'm writing my book. So it was really quite therapeutic and really creative and exciting to actually be able to write my story. But in doing so, I have definitely given up more of the songwriting. So I'm doing lot less songwriting, hardly any songwriting at all, because I'm developing others and writing books.
Yeah, amazing. Different time, different now. Yeah, owing to the demand and owing to the creativity with your ship too, and it happened naturally. Amazing. It's built around a simple but hard truth that rejections and comparison can eat a dream alive. What is the quiet internal quitting that happened to a creative person long before they ever announced they are giving up?
I think it's because they've allowed that comparison to happen. They've allowed it to eat into them. And I think it's really important that you have a team around you that tells you, stop looking, stop comparing, stop thinking you're someone else. Very simply, I used to, so if you look at social media, I remember having two different writers I worked with, and one of them said to me, how come he gets all the real success? And I thought, as far as I know, they're about equal. And so I looked it up and I saw that actually the guy that thought he wasn't successful just wasn't reporting it on social media. But the guy who thought the other guy was successful, the other guy was reporting his success before, during, and after. So it looked like he was 3 times more successful. All he was good at was social media. So he'd learnt to play the game. But actually, if you are looking at that and comparing yourself, you can't, because unless you can play that game as well. So I think that the key thing is, don't compare to someone else. I have a life and I have a dream and a goal. Let's go back to football again. If I'm playing as a striker and I keep comparing myself to the best goalkeeper in the world, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Because he's got a different job to do. So actually my dream is to follow, and my goal in life is to follow my dream, not look at someone else's dream and think they're doing well. I should try and do what they're doing. You've got to stick to your own strengths and your own goal and keep on that path and have people around you that will keep you on that path to make you accountable.
Yeah, my goal is to follow my dream and have people around me, that keep reminding you the dream. It's really amazing and very lovely. Thank you so much for sharing. And also, you have said that it's much easier to succeed with a team than alone. And your own success came from finding the right people around you. What did you have to quit believing about doing it all by yourself before you could really allow people in?
Ego was the biggest thing to quit. So as a writer, and I see this all the time because I manage writers. So if you're writing, it's like control. I've got control. This is my creativity. This is my thing. The moment someone else comes in and you have to share it, you have to basically quit your ego. You have to give it up, because that person becomes part of what you do. And actually, again, if I believe in my strengths and someone else comes in and they've got different strengths, they could, by being open and losing my ego, they can actually grow what I've got. And that's what happened. I was good, but I wasn't as good as some of my partners and my parts. As soon as I was as a 3, we were really good. And we were actually unstoppable because we could all work to our strengths. So I would say ego, you've got to quit your ego when you've got a team.
Yeah, amazing. You have to quit ego and see the strength of the next person and see how you could perfectly fit it in towards becoming better and growing, bigger as a team compared to raging alone as just one person. Yeah, amazing. So for songwriter or creative listening right now who think maybe I'm not cut out for this, what is the first thing you need to quit telling themselves today?
I would say find other like-minded songwriters. I run a mentorship, and when I first interviewed writers for that mentorship, let's say I interviewed 100 in a month. 98 of those told me they felt isolated. Now, if 98 people tell you they're isolated, there's a very simple thing. Introduce those 98 people to each other and they won't be isolated anymore. So actually what happens is when you're creative and when you're being rejected and when you're being said that you're not good enough, and you start to believe that. But when you're with a group of people where they're being told that as well, but some of them are a little bit successful and some of them are getting, then actually that you start to believe in that group, and then you start to be accountable to that group. And actually as a team, as a group of people, you're not isolated anymore. You're not doing it alone. People will give up. I would have given up if I was totally alone, but I found the right people, which helped me carry on.
Yeah, finding the right people who help you carry on. And I think this really speaks volume, having a team who does similar thing. Just, being that creativity sometimes can, it's really a whole lot, and it could be so exhausting when you don't have our creative our teams or those who actually do similar things just to discuss some basic things, and you having to see some commonalities make it easier for you to be able to go through a whole lot of stuff compared to you having to be a low ranger. Because I could actually imagine this when I became a podcaster, it was difficult to keep showing up consistently. But when I have other different podcasters we are now friends, we're in a group, we are more than 10, and once in a month we just have meetings, discuss our setback, ups and down, and seeing common problems sometimes make it easier to say, oh, that means I'm not the only one going through this. And
Totally.
we draw solutions, find a common ground, and it's easier for us to grow from there. They just speak volumes. Yeah. And also you talk about our finishing song and beating procrastination as much as you talk about talent. Why is showing up the hardest? Why is showing up the harder and more important habits to build?
I think there's a discipline in. So I've worked with lots and lots of good songwriters, but they may not finish their songs. So songwriter, if the song stays on their hard drive, how are they going to be successful? And they'll still come to me and they'll say, yeah, I've got lots of songs and I'm not successful yet and I'm going to give up. And I'll sort of say, so where have you pitched your songs? I haven't pitched songs. And you're like, well, there's a message here that you've missed a loop in the chain, because actually the truth is you haven't asked anyone if you're any good. You haven't you haven't asked for anyone's opinion. You haven't reached out. So actually it's really important that actually you finish songs and then you pitch your songs, because if you finish them to a very high standard, someone in the world's going to like them. But if you just leave them and you procrastinate and you put them on your hard drive, you could be the best songwriter in the world, but no one is going to hear you at that point.
Yeah.
So finishing is really important. Turning up is really important. It's like at that. So there's a creative part of us, which I think you have to let flow. But we've worked in this industry so I've done it since 2003, and I turn up every day at work. I don't sit at home thinking, I hope an idea comes. I go into the studio and I sit down with the equipment and we try and write a song. We're practicing. We're building the muscle. I don't sit there and go to the gym and look at the weights and think, this is nice. I wonder if my muscles will grow.
Yeah.
You go and you use the equipment, don't you? So there's an element of the same as songwriting. If it's a muscle, if it's a talent, you got to go and use the discipline every day to work at it. And the two work together.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. Showing up with discipline other than just more like, and putting things out there too, other than just having some instant masturbation of why things does not work without necessarily putting in the work that is demanded towards bringing a result. Yeah, it's amazing. And also your book is called Keeping the Dreams Alive. For someone whose dream has gone quietly under the weight of everyday life, what do they need to quit today to hear it again?
I would say quit being hard on yourself, quit being around negative people, and sort of do the opposite. Find some positive people and think about what inspired you in the first place. Why did you, I will use songwriters as an analogy, but why did I want to songwrite? And actually, Sunday night, I went to a concert. It was a group called Orchestral Manoeuvres in the Dark, or OMD. That's why I started music, because I heard music and it inspired me, and I felt like, wow, look at the way that people respond to these songs. So if you put yourself back in the situation where you're inspired again, you'll find your dreams come back. So you've got to kind of stop feeling sorry for yourself, lift your head up and remind yourself of your dreams. What inspired you in the first place? It will come back. If it's supposed to, it will come back. Back in 2003, I'd lost it. It was just there as a tiny little seed, but I'd lost most of it. And eventually it came back, because in a sense I stopped feeling sorry for myself. Actually, there was a point where I started to say I'm going to succeed in the bank. It was a bit like I had to succeed in the bank first before I could succeed outside of it. So I almost had to put myself into a positive frame of mind, whatever I was doing. And then the dreams came back.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your heart with us on Quit to Win. These has really been amazing sections and a whole lot of lessons to pick from. So where can my listeners find your book? keeping the dream alive and connect with you too, Vera?
So mostly the easiest place is Amazon, is my book. So Keeping the Dream Alive, Greig Watts, and I've got an I in my name, Greig. You can find it on Amazon. You can look at my website, www.dwbmusicgroup.com. Find me on Facebook, Instagram, again, Greig Watts or DWB Music. I'm there and I can, reply to messages, or if anyone wants to ask questions, I'm always very comfortable.
Yeah.
Contactable.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Gregor. Thank you. Yeah. For the reminder that the only thing standing between a dream and a life is the belief that isn't possible. It's exactly what this audience needs to hear. From our audience who would love to reach out, check the show notes. You see the link to, reach out and be able to get a book. Remember that staying in the place that is shrinking you is never a safe option. Letting go of it is. Once again, a pleasure and honor having you on the show. Great.
Thank you for having me.